Oh,
Okay, we're gathering, we're gathering. Welcome back, everyone. Hello to everybody on the live stream. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome Hollay Ghadery, all the way from Ontario. Yeah. Hollay is an award-winning Iranian-Canadian multi-genre writer living in rural Ontario on Anishinaabe. I'm going to say that right. I've been practicing this and I'm going to screw it up. Anishinaabe land. Yes, thank you, Anishinaabe land. Her recent memoir, Fuse, won the Canadian Bookclub Award for Nonfiction Memoir, and her short fiction collection, Widow Fantasies, is due this September. And she has a debut novel coming forward in 2026 and a children's book in 2027. It's like every year there's a book. Wow, you're gonna be busy. So Holly's debut poetry collection is Rebellion Box. And this is what she'll be reading from this evening. And its title poem won the New Quarterly's Nick Blatchford Occasional Verse Prize, which I've entered and not got anything in. Hollay is the owner of River Street Writing. She's a co-host of Angie's Book Club on 105.5 HITS FM. She's an editor with the Manola Review, Untethered Magazine, and Longcon Magazine. And Hollay is the first Poet Laureate of Scugog, Ontario. Please welcome Hollay Ghadery.
Thank you so much for that. It sounds all more impressive than it is. I'm 8 years sober, and while I was drinking, I wrote a lot of very bad stuff. I thought I was genius, but I wasn't. So when I got sober, I just had a lot of material to work with. And then that's what happened. I actually wasn't as prolific as that sounds. And, you know, you always think when you're drinking or using that, what you're saying is so profound, and it is not. So sobriety was super helpful for me. So I'm just gonna make sure I time myself, because I was saying earlier that I did a reading recently and I was supposed to read for 20 minutes and I read for 10 and left. So apparently I have no concept of time and they weren't impressed with me. So I'm timing myself. So I'm gonna be reading some new poems because I am working on a new collection. And after the novel, I'm really excited to get back to poetry because I've had 4 kids and I would rather spontaneously give birth right now than write a novel again. But it's awful. But I mean the novel part. But I also said I was done having kids after 2, so we can't trust anything I say. Basically, never say never. 2 of my kids came to Victoria with me, my 2 oldest, who are turning 14 and 11, and I asked them if they were going to come, and they said, "No, Mom, because you always read the poems that mention cervixes." And I was like, well, now I have to. I wasn't planning to, so now we're going to. So one of them is kind of has to do with the first time that I realized that I'm not really on the radar of young men anymore, and the fact that I use a term like young man, it's pretty obvious why. And that happened to be when I was in Cuba, and I realized that this guy was like checking out the girl beside me and me, and how I felt about that. So the poem's called Postcard Santa Maria. Across the pool, the boy's plum dark eyes gulp refracted light all over the girl beside me. Stretched to indifference, her thighs are perfectly fattened calves, flicking flies, their frisson of velvet shimmers made slow by this drugged heat, made soft. I'm not that girl anymore. I have the conviction of dusk and the cervix of a 15-year-old, my doctor says. Not bad for 4 kids. So I'll believe in anything, so I can believe it all. The boy's coming, snake sway in his hips, a roving satellite over breast and breath and brown. His air-compressed confidence warps the children's laughter, baffles the sun so even the girl looks up. I'm not that girl anymore. Her curling toes, her eyes impossible beyond shades, her weight inside me shifting my embarrassment of cliches scattered like nail clippings. It's a humbling moment. Although a poet, Mary Ellen Zamer, said to me when I was in my 20s that becoming invisible was the best thing that ever happened to her. So I'm counting on it. I have to admit though, I was walking downtown Toronto. My daughter and I were going to a movie premiere of one of my friends, and Dave Brock, his movie, The Mother of All Shows, he wrote it. You should see it. And my daughter's only 12, and she was just being eye-humped by men at 12, and I was just like, ugh. Like, so I felt like, yes, nobody's looking at me, but also, ugh. And so like, I was just glaring at everyone, and my daughter was like, just being a girl is terrible. And I guess it is, welcome. Yeah. So she enrolled in mixed martial arts, so. Just gonna do cage fighting. I'm like, sounds good. So this one is my search history, which also mentions cervix. Because if they're not gonna come because of it, I'm gonna make it worth it. So this is my actual search history. Brown discharge, white mucus. Spotting 10 days post-ovulation. Geriatric pregnancy age. Does having kids reduce risk of breast cancer? Does having kids reduce risk of ovarian cancer? Why did the Triceratops get sick in Jurassic Park? Can you get genital herpes from a cold sore? Allergies, earache. Allergies, itchy skin. Allergies, perimenopause. Is 40 too young for perimenopause? How many kilometers in 7,156 steps? What are the odds of my husband dying before me? Who wrote the theme song for Murder, She Wrote? All important. So, and that, you know, chances of my husband dying before me. Again, my collection of short fiction coming up with Gordon Hill is called Widow Fantasies. I was working out some things. But he's fine, we're fine. If I was going to kill him, I wouldn't write a book about it. So, which is exactly what someone would say if they were going to do it. Anyways, I'm just digging my hole a little deeper. So what I would love to read next is, I have a poem called Pouch of Douglas, which is another vagina poem, which I'm not going to read just very well, but I didn't realize until my kids said that when I was walking here. I was like, God, there are a lot of, you know. I also once made them look at a wall of cervixes because they didn't know what cervixes looked like. And I'm like, this is all these, and there's, I'm like, I didn't know what a cervix looked like, so this is new to me too. So let's educate ourselves. This is called Braids, and it is a pantoum piece. And somebody else read a pantoum, but it's a perverted pantoum. And I don't mean the content, although maybe that too. But mostly, I love foreign poetry, but I also like to play with it a little bit. Braids. I don't know if we're meant for the stars, but I still like to hear his voice, see pictures of him maybe, his wife now and then. A handful of things to wake me like sun stains. I used to like to hear his voice, see pictures of him lying with his hair in braids, then using his wife now and then. A handful of things to help me here. I'm alive, I'm static, I'm lying with his hair in braids, then using the sun to part the trees and the trees to help me here. I'm alive, I'm static, I'm not listening to him breathe. I design the sun to part the trees and the trees to give way. Sure, he may pull through, but I'm not listening to him breathe. I designed an answer. The answer to everything is to give way. Sure, he may pull through, but I'm not meant for the stars or braids. I design an answer. The answer to everything is to hear his voice, see pictures of him made. So the new quarterly, yeah, that home, Rebellion Box, which won. I mean, I had it for 14 years and it was rejected over 112 times, and then it won the new quarterlies contest. So I don't know what to tell you. It is a fickle world out there. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm also a book publicist, so I just feel that fickleness all the time. I'm going to read it. It is a sestina. Again, I love forum homes. Nancy was in my workshop that I did with Planet Earth Poetry last Saturday. Time has no meaning anymore. And I really love forum because it can help me try to contain my thoughts. I live with existential OCD, which is a kind of OCD that's extremely preoccupied to an extent of being incapacitated by fear at questions of existence and mortality. In fact, there's some words I won't even say, and I can't say, and I can't write, and I won't write. And I have rituals I have to do every day. And it does make traveling hard, but my doctor has loaded me up with so many sedatives right now. I am just butter. So my kids are really enjoying me right now. That's probably why I didn't hurt from the whale watching tour as much as they did. They were getting out like, oh, my back. I'm like, I can't feel much of anything. I feel pretty limber right now. So this is a poem, Rebellion Box, and it is written in the voice of Joseph Gould, who was the founder of a small town called Uxbridge, Ontario. He was a Quaker, a pacifist, and he was imprisoned in Fort Henry during the rebellion of 1837. And when I first heard about him at a lecture series in my little town of Uxbridge, I was like, I don't care about this dead white guy. But then I started caring about him because I thought about how horrible it is to be trapped and feel impotent in your life and the things happening around you, which is something I'm very familiar with. And I think probably a lot of us are. Ask your husband about the honeybees. I may have an affinity for things that drone and drown out. On the way here, everything was so green it hurt. The trees practically threw themselves on the road, and to think, only days ago I'd been worried about my nose most of all. Now John's been hung, and the rest of us rot and cut away at stovewood. Just rest and please for the foolish. I know some of us have stepped into battle thinking only about valor, liberty, winning. It's easy to drown in these abstracts, but it's a dangerous road to follow. I've seen how brave men hurt so easily. Tell Mary I think of her often. It can hurt to think of myself like this, all stone and soot, but rest assured my present circumstance is not finite. Every road leads home. It's true, our troops sat in that tavern and may have felt some degree of foreboding already. We drowned our fear, glass after glass. I admit I was afraid to think about Mary, home, honeybees, and my broken nose, about to fall off my face from want of attention. I know I hurt the most remarkable people. God, Mary, I will drown my primitive conditions. I've managed to create. I rest in dirt and root myself to the root of her. I may be the most pressing of hopeless things because road after road and I still brandish youth like a shotgun. Road after road leads to finding something to do about all this time on my hands. I dovetail my work. I may be the most diligent of craftsmen. All this time can hurt, way black and blue in the middle of my face. The rest, the luxury of a blue cotton dress, the rest can drown. Like marzipan creek pebbles, July sweetgrass chew, drown in wait, because all that talk and rallying, it cleared a road. I won't stand for futility. There are so many reasons to rest your beliefs here, not one of us has. I write home about paying debts on time, mending the fence. I write to avoid hurt, boredom, being forgotten. I write you about the honeybees. You may remember the summer we cleared your husband's land. May came hard, and the bees came early. I was stung twice. It hurt, but Mary wasn't blue, and it was something else to think about. So I probably should have mentioned that rebellion boxes were boxes carved out of stone wood that the prisoners that were held in Fort Henry carved and sent home to their loved ones. Joseph Gould sent one home to who he would eventually be his mother-in-law, because he wasn't allowed to send direct notes to the woman he loved, Mary, because it would have been considered inappropriate. So all messages and all letters went to his mother-in-law, which is who that poem is directed to. So I'm going to eventually read in a minute something from the new collection I'm working on. And, as Stephen Heighton said in a little series I do on River Street, the Power Q&A, he was kind enough a few years ago to answer one of my questions. And he said something that I always quote, and it's, he likes poetry because career-wise, the stakes couldn't be lower. And I'm like, not wrong. And so I think that's why I like getting back to it, is no matter what, it's always like a thing of pleasure. And so I've started some poetry again, but this was the poem that the collection was going to be named after, and then somebody pointed out that nobody would know what it was, so I changed it. Not that anyone knows what Rebellion Box is, but at least the words make sense. This is called Psychomachia. So anyone who doesn't know what Psychomachia is, I always say, if you've seen the movie The Emperor's New Groove, when Kronk has like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, that's kind of it. It's like a battle of your souls. And then after I started having children, thinking, what the hell have I done? I had a lot of conflicting feelings when my children were very young. Now they range from 6 to 14, but when I was like in the thick of the very young childhood, I had these conflicting feelings. Then I didn't want to write a poem about it because I feel like, there's so many poems about motherhood, and that's a wonderful thing. But I thought, people don't like poems about motherhood. People are like, oh, mom poems, ew. And then I'm like, screw them. I'm gonna write what I want to write. Becoming a mother has made me the best feminist ever, I think. Psychomachia. I'll never feel like my old self again. So there's no question of suffering, blooming out, amaryllis, or laughing like the last luxury on earth. I can't picture a wall free of fingerprints, a sink without beard clippings. And my milk-stained existence rests on that spider until morning comes, stretching crimson arms around the house. I trace daybreak, the cloud-on-cloud action, and hone in on a little light growing. It's all I need to be less bothered by this knotted bewilderment, deep as newborn blue and mobile bright. My friends live in their soundstage cities, smile like quicksand. They call and I say, cut me a slice of your dishwater sky. I know they're forgetting me, that I've forgotten home, flushed with gifts, a new world welcome. It's a battle to control the rate of absorption, the rate the days consume me, their tiny eternities carrying over and over themselves like my daughter's blonde hair, braided over her shoulder, a stretch of sky so wide I could reach in, pull out sunlight strand by strand. On the dazzling succession of maybes and missed appointments, a good-for-nothing wife with unruly thighs in the hardware store, aisles with chainsaws, ropes, or rat poison bring to mind empty rolls of toilet paper and socks shoved between couch cushions, bring to mind visions of the baby in black, imported cakes of my husband's favorite beer, and me, a butterfly pinned and untouchable. Don't tell me you know your own soul so well. Friends call and listen to my lake water heart aching, the white buzz of early autumn, and I'm trying to understand. There's all this red in the trees, not my son's hair anymore. It's my fault, I know. I wished it away. As usual, the clocks are sick, with this dusty disconnect between waking and sleep, and the baby dozing half awake in my arms. She's just a feeling in the ends of my hair. The baby, my blue-eyed black hole, reminds me we were all very small once. We woke our mothers early, blinking sparks, slingshot smiles, reminds me to love the natural disorders of my body. But that afternoon throws itself across the yard, an angry toddler. Still, when I breathe out, she's beside me breathing in, and she keeps me going. When friends call, I say, everything's fine, and laugh canopies or razor blades in every room. I close my eyes and see sharks in their ocean, their oil-spilled eyes dripping. Close my eyes and can still point to the sun. On the way back from school, we find a rubber alligator and an oasis of cream soda, and I begin to think all good stories are anonymous. We stand in the sweet hook of a crabapple tree, and the afternoon falls eyelash heavy. It's what I wanted, baby swallowed against my chest, one small hand in each of mine, walking home, talking about the taste of clouds, where the wind comes from, if it ever finds its way home. And I know no matter how close I hold my children, no matter how I plan to keep them safe, there'll never be enough blue sky in the world, not when I'm through with it. Being a mom's tough, right? So for the last poem, I'm going to read from the project I'm working on, which is it's loosely called Markers of Time. That's not what it's going to stay of, but it's about trying to live with existential OCD and celebrate any passage of time. Because anytime somebody has a birthday, anytime there's an anniversary, anytime anything happy happens, I'm like, oh, we're all hurtling towards the end. Why are people celebrating this? Like, I have this crisis and I'm just incapable of being happy for any happy occasion. Is that, you know, every first is a last, and it's just, I go down, I spiral quite quickly. So my dad and I have this thing where we go to a lot of funerals together, which seems a bad idea, and it is actually. But my dad and I were like maybe the only two people that go as like our family representatives. So I wrote a poem called Existential OCD at the Visitation about a recent one we went to together. Virginia's brother is shaking hands, his mangled head like one of my dog's tennis balls, tufts of fluff clinging in patches, soft in spots, damp. My dad lifts his chin towards the man, soda voice, when he says, he's next. And of course I laugh, press my knuckles to my lips and laugh. What else is there to do? Virginia is slack-necked, stiff-jawed, and my dad is clasping a hand over the hand of her brother, holding his eyes blink, membraned, and I'm the rosary threading Virginia's fingers, her nails clean and crescent-mooned, hair brushed back from forehead. Such love, but I'm careless. Love, but we were never promised. Love, but we were never promised any measure of time anyway. Virginia is cool Mediterranean tile underfoot, thick slices of panetero cake, bottle blonde light falling slant across a stone bench in a wild garden. The childhood warmth of knowing when you talk, someone listens, someone's there. Virginia is going straight to heaven, that one. A woman stands close behind me, perfume clawing the back of my neck, says those words as the brother takes my hand. I feel my bloated blue veins plump as worms, think chalk dust clouds. How every day I wait for my husband to come home and walk me like a dog, so I can sniff mud-sweet air, extend limbs towards the sun, meaty weed that I am. Love, but I'm restless. Love, but unravel. Love, but call my children by the names of my long-gone cats. These days, Virginia is a sky weeping stars, my dad's palm between my shoulders, the way you don't know silence until something disrupts it, the way we were the center of the universe only moments ago. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Hollay. Thank you so much for being here. Wow. Rhea, it's a good thing you're an old hat at this, hey, and can, you know, like, I don't mean to, and you've got 15 books, so you can follow Hollay. Rhea Tregebov has travelled from Vancouver to read for us tonight. And Rhea has written 15 books of poetry, fiction, and children's stories. Her poems have earned the Pat Lowther Award, the Prairie Schooner Reader's Choice Award, and the Malahat Review Long Poem Prize, amongst others. Her fiction has been shortlisted for the BC Yukon Book Awards Ethel Wilson Fiction Prize and the Kobza Award, and won the Nancy Richler Memorial Prize for Fiction and the J.I. Siegel Award, and also made it into the Globe and Mail's top 5 books. Rhea has edited numerous anthologies, including Arguing with the Storm, an anthology of stories by women writers that she co-translated from the Yiddish. Rhea also taught in the creative writing program at UBC and was a chair of the Writers' Union of Canada. And tonight, Rhea will read from her 8th collection of poetry, Talking to Strangers. Please welcome Rhea Tregebov.
Thank you so much. Wow, it's great to be here. This is the most amazing reading series, and it's really wonderful to be part of it. It's wonderful to read to people I don't know. I've had a launch in Winnipeg and a launch in Toronto, and those were great parties, but this is exciting. I'm going to set my timer too, because I'm I want to keep an eye on the time. And don't want to read over or under, although you could have read over. I don't think anybody would have minded. Hollay was saying before that you told the audience too. So this is Talking to Strangers. It came out officially at the beginning of April. I actually had it in my hands a couple of weeks early, which is a remarkable feeling. And I wanted to you have to press start, don't you? Otherwise it just sits there. And I wanted to read from the various sections. It's more themed than most of my other books. Is this mic okay? I'm definitely not as tall as Hollay or Kevin. So you can hear me all right? Great. And hello. Good to see you. We're live streaming as well, and everybody knows that. So the sections are themed more than most of my other books, and this is a section of what I think of as, in some ways, science poems. And the first one that I'll read is titled "The End of Everything." And it's from an episode, oh, sorry, can't see you if I got my glasses on. It's from an episode of the CBC radio program Quartz and Quarks. I'm an English major, but I'm definitely, a would-be science nerd. So I love listening to it. And The End of Everything, astrophysically speaking, is the title of a book that was the subject of one of those episodes. And the author of that book is the astronomer Katie Mack. The End of Everything, astrophysically speaking. And so this is real science. At the Vancouver launch, a friend of mine who's a physicist was attending, and he assured, I got scared in the middle when I saw that he was there, but he assured me that the physics is accurate. Great thing about podcasts is you can listen to them over and over, or even when it wasn't podcast, it was a radio, but you could listen to it over and over again. So I actually got it right. And this was written during the pandemic. So I think that you'll see how that comes in. The End of Everything. Cosmology knows everything began. Remember the Big Bang? And will end. Stars form, die. Galaxies morph. The universe won't stay. The astrophysicist figures we have 5 paths: heat decay, big crunch, big rip, vacuum decay, or finally, my personal favorite, bouncing cosmologies. Contrary to popular opinion, heat death is in fact the death of heat, not death by heat. This big chill is the most likely suspect. For the big crunch, picture a classic house of cards, twin towers, pancaking. Everything we can imagine and all we can't, folding inwards into itself. The big rip is plain rage, dark energy which we don't understand, at war with the stuff we do. Stars torn from galaxies, poor stars. Planets, poor planets, torn from their stars, till everyone is alone in their own dimming little pool of light. Vacuum decay has the universe shudder, succumb to a basic instability, giving in to some core flaw. I do like the unlikely bouncing cosmologies where everything pinballs, beginning and ending, cycling over and over and over again. Some comfort there. When the astrophysicist is asked what this has to do with us, she says we are irrelevant, inconsequential, perfectly insignificant. So what do we have to do with this if we don't matter? What is the end of everything? In particular, us. Maybe this, maybe for us, this. Everything may be one countenance, one single look, or in these days of pestilence, touch. Someone we know like the back of our hand, that's someone touching our hand. These are days of pestilence, days of excess deaths. Every day, each death, a death too many. Each death, the end of a world. Sorry to contribute to your existential OC. Wow, it's all gonna end.
I'm sedated, remember, we're gonna. And asteroid, pick up the word right now.
So the next section of the book is the talking to strangers section. And I didn't know that it was going to be a series. I just wrote one poem way back in 2011, which was just, it didn't quite sneak into the last book of poetry. It was about an encounter with someone that I had never met before, one of those moments where you suddenly have intimacy and there's a breach in that wall of difference and strangeness, and you can actually connect with someone. And wrote that one, and then there was another like that, and suddenly I realized these are moments that happen in my life. They're all of the poems, there's 10 of them altogether, they're all nonfiction. I think I probably tried about 15 and then wound up with these 10. I give them all, so they started before the pandemic and then continued through, and then wherever it is we are now. I don't dare say post-pandemic, but in these times where we can all be in a room together, which is so great. So they all have the place and the date in them. And this is that very first one that didn't quite make it into the last book of poetry. It's called Talk, White Night. And the setting is Whitehorse, Yukon, and the date is June 2011. And as we know, there's very important hockey games happening right now. And 13 years ago, on June 15th, 2011, there were the hockey riots in Vancouver. So that is sort of the context for this poem. And 10 days later, I was lucky enough, Whitehorse used to have the Whitehorse Poetry Festival, and I was lucky enough to be up there late June, which was literally almost midnight sun. The white night was the endless sunshine. And me and my buddies went into a bar and into one of those big booths and sat down with people we didn't know. And this is the story that came out of it. The poem that came out of it. Talk, White Night, Whitehorse, Yukon, June 2011. We're all strangers in the startling light of midnight, but we seat ourselves beside the young woman in the dim booth in the bar, talk about the light, the dark inside, the kilometers she's driven solo from Vancouver with her dog sleeping in her van. She's fine, she says. She's safe with the dogs. She just needed something, a flinch in her mouth I catch, to get away. Talk drifts to the hockey riots 10 days ago, when the Canucks lost the big game. Fans segued into mob, began their labors tipping porta potties, garbage cans, moved on to torching police cars, trashing pizza joints. Then anything. Now, inside the bar's dull light, we watch 10-day-old footage on someone's phone, smoke rolling thick as silk on sidewalks the angry men own for a bit. I need a weapon, a sweet-faced boy says, watching another crack his skateboard against a car. And it's work to break through the tough glass. When at last they win, watchers cheer, take trophy snapshots, videos, victory V's, triumphant poses. There have been walls between them and what they want. Their team has failed, so now they'll take walls down, fill their arms with things they don't have or don't have enough of. I was there, the young woman tells us. She's a paramedic. That night she was out with the cops. The people she'd come to help hurt her. She pushes back her bangs to show the bruise. She's safe with the dogs. She just needed to get away. Beyond the windows, the sun broods over the horizon, not ready to go. And I'll read one more from the Talking to Strangers section. And this one is called Talk Sidewalk, and it's set in Toronto, and the date is October 2019. The man bleeding won't sit down. He'll hold the towel the bystander got him from the nail salon tight around his wrist, and he'll raise his arm above his head like we ask him, but he won't sit down. He's sad about the six-pack that fell and cut him, sad they're broken, and it hurts where the glass sliced, but he won't sit on the curb. My son has called 911, and we want the ambulance to come. We want the siren wailing towards us because the blood scares us, brightening the white towel with red. The new one, second one, that the bystander, a young woman with a backpack thinking quick, has also fetched. Blood shines on the sidewalk, on the street. The man bleeding is tall, tall as my son, and we're afraid of how far he could fall. His speech isn't quite right, and he's angry when my son tells the dispatcher he might be intoxicated. I have a brain injury, he tells us. I was in a car accident 12 years ago. I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. I apologize, my son says. I made a mistake. It's okay, the man says. You made a mistake. But he won't sit down. I've sat enough, he says. And then the next section, after the talk poems, it's called How It Works. And these are all love poems of one kind or another. And my partner, Sam, his parents were Holocaust survivors. And the term that we use for the children of Holocaust survivors is second generation. So that's the title of the poem. And it's about living with someone who doesn't like to throw anything away. Second generation. You want to keep everything. Obsolete, dust-encrusted, plastic wrapped blank mini cassettes for the defunct video camera that caught the kids' lives. Vacant jewel cases that don't hold any of the music you don't play. To save everything. The tin can long parted from its label that might hold something good. The 80s sweatshirt, fluorescent logo resting flake by plastic flake into cipher. to keep everything you never had. That real live monkey orphaned in its teacup, the back pages of the comic book offered for the little you couldn't afford. Just one glance from the girl practicing flute in the girls' bathroom. Its lonesome tones, not for you. To save everything the war took. Your father's mother, his father, side by side. Her lace collar, white blouse pressed. His suit solemn, dark. Unknowable uncles, aunts, cousins, their faces in photos on no wall. And okay, I'll read one longer poem and then I might have time for a little short one. I'm keeping my eye on the stopwatch. My partner and I, we took the ferry from Vancouver. We took an early ferry because I was terrified of not getting here. But then we had the whole day ahead of us and we stopped at Butchert Gardens, which is just a great time to be there. And I'm the gardener in the family, and so this was an indulgence, but it was wonderful. But now that I've got this big garden to look after, I looked at Butchert Gardens like, how do they, how do they, like, we were looking for weeds, surely there's a weed, like, I know they must have 1 million gardeners there. So this is about my own garden, and the title of the poem is, or our own garden, the title of the poem is Definition. I describe my woes to my friend, the pro, genius of a plot greater and finer than my own big old garden, where everything grows into everything else. Definition, she tells me. That's what I need. I was defined by a cold place, a time when summer was brief and brilliant, by a house of enough in a neighborhood of just and not enough. Pink petunias and orange marigold, a red rose or two. But here, too much. Too much moneywort, invaded by stone crop, inveigled by barren wart, entangled with leopard's bane. Besotted, greedy, jealous to save every bloom, leaf. For me, this more than enough isn't too much. Can't yank a stem I call flower, not weed. Though there is the buttercup war I keep waging, kneeling on stones like a penitent, cursing their stubborn, fecund being. But what's the difference between flowers and weeds? Peter, at 8, enlisted as foot soldier, asks. Pull everything up and what comes back is weed, my dad in his heyday would kid, neatly defining invasive. Define need. Define enough. My friend tells me I need to learn to say no to ferns sprouting in the daylilies, to sweet woodruff infiltrating hosta. Need to define what it is I want, what I keep, love, let flourish. I want too much. So my little stopwatch here says I have a couple minutes left. There's a sequence of poems, the second last sequence, one for each sense of taste. So bitter, sour, sweet, salt, and umami. I'll read sour. I'm not feeling at all sour, but I'll read that one. Sour. Pucker. That face either offering or distaste, ready to kiss or spit, appetite or aversion, mild acid etches your mouth, milk that's turned against you. Or what you can't get, so don't want. Or do you want only what you can't get? Do you want what hurts? Let's say you like it mixed, tempered with sweet, lemon pie, borscht made with rhubarb and honey. Let's say that. Thank you.